Macedonian Phalanx, infantry of all times. When most people think of ancient Greek soldiers, they usually picture a heavily armored hoplite with a shield and a sword. But the most numerous and arguably most important branch of the Macedonian army was its infantry phalanx armed with long spears. This formidable wall of overlapping shields and pointy metal sticks was nearly impenetrable and completely dominated the battlefield. When it first appeared in Greece around 700 BC, and even though it went out of style somewhat later in Greece, it remained the main form of infantry for several centuries and even had a brief revival during the late Roman Republic. But what exactly was a phalanx and how did it work? The Greek word phalanx originally referred to the side of a building and the triangular shape of the shield used by Greek hoplites. These large rectangular shields were called aspis and were made of wood and leather, sometimes reaching nearly 6 feet tall. They were so big that they could be used one-handed and were usually carried on the soldier's back until needed. When the time came to use them, the soldiers would form a tight group, shoulder to shoulder, with their shields forming a huge wall of protection that blocked arrows and prevented cavalry charges. But the real power of the phalanx came from its weapons. Instead of short swords or daggers, the Macedonian phalangists carried long spears, some as long as 18 feet. These long spears could easily reach an enemy soldier without the soldier having to get too close. And because they were so long, the spears had to be held with 2 hands, which meant that a phalangite couldn't wield a shield at the same time. So instead, the shield was attached to his armor. Over time, the design of the shield evolved so that it could be held with 1 hand, allowing the soldiers to wield both a spear and a shield. However, the most common formation still had the soldiers holding their spears over their heads, making a wall of pointed metal sticks over the shield wall. This formation was nearly impenetrable, especially because of the depth of the phalanx. Soldiers fought in ranks, usually 3 deep, so an enemy soldier would have to get through 2 ranks of shields and spears before reaching the 3rd rank, which was usually made up of the most elite soldiers. The phalanx was so effective that it remained the standard form of infantry for centuries and was used by many different armies, including the Theban Sacred Band, which famously defeated the Spartans at the Battle of Leuctra in 371 BC. The phalanx fell out of favor in Greece around the 4th century BC, but was revived by the Romans during the late Republic. The Roman phalanx was not as deep as the Greek phalanx and didn't use a rectangular shield, but it did use a large oval shield called a scutcheon and a long spear called a hausta. The Roman phalanx was mostly used during the Social War against the Italians and the Sertorian War in Spain. And that's all for this episode. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already.